Hey everyone, welcome to the module on negotiations. Nearly all of the clients that I have encounter difficult conversations or negotiations at some point in their career, whether or not it's just an uncomfortable conversation with a person or whether or not we're asking for something very specific that's important to us. Those conversations are ripe with so many challenges and uncomfortable feelings. And today, my goal is to help you prepare for those discussions, plan those discussions, and conduct a bit of a post-mortem once those discussions are over so that we can learn from them and continue to get better at these uncomfortable situations. I have slides that I'm going to share with you today. There's tons of worksheets to go along with this module as well. Hopefully that all of these things taken together will help make those conversations a little bit less uncomfortable than they already are. I'm going to share my screen and we are going to jump right in. So as part of this discussion, we have to get very clear on a couple things. So we're going to start with the why. Why is it so important for us to commit to having these conversations from a global perspective, but also personally? Then we're going to examine your negotiation style and how to prepare for those discussions. Most importantly, we're going to go through how to actually present your request and conduct the negotiation. How do we examine it on the back end and the post-mortem? And how do we take back our power after the negotiation is over? Maybe sometimes when that negotiation doesn't go exactly how we wanted it to. So first, why is it so important for us to commit to having these uncomfortable discussions? When we want something that we currently have, we have to assume that part of the exploration, part of the process to get there is going to require us to push through that discomfort. Y'all know that that's an important piece of the work that I do. And we just have to know that in order to embrace that discomfort, we have to be willing to take certain risks. And those risks just assume that we never know how they're going to come out. One of those risks is voicing your truth and asking for what you want. We never know how it's going to be received by the other people involved in the conversation. And we have to at least own that there's no way we're ever going to know exactly how this is going to play out, what they're going to think about it, what they're going to make about it. We just have to own that. That means it's going to be a very uncomfortable conversation in some ways because we just never know, right? That uncertainty is part of it. It's important because doing this can build our self-confidence. And the more that we do this and the more that we learn that we can do this despite the uncertainty and despite the discomfort, we can trust ourselves even more to have the conversation, learn from it, survive it. That discomfort's not going to hinder us and it's not going to hurt us. There's all sorts of studies on women and when we voice our wants and how we don't voice our needs and the impact that that has on us. I have a citation here that one study pointed out that we lose $1 million over our lifetime by not asking for what we want. Part of the reason I find this so important, especially in coaching, is that asking for what you want and having those negotiations is really just part of taking back our power. It's part of owning that the firm, the job, the boss, whomever, they're never going to give us what we want. And we can't wait around forever for them to make it what we want and give us what we want. And maybe we're not even sharing, right? So asking for what we want and being clear about that is about taking back our power and trying to create the life and the career that we want on our own and taking steps to get us there and not waiting for anyone else to give that to us. It's part of this commitment to taking back our power and owning our space. I think also as women, it's difficult for us to have this conversation without just asking, what are we showing to the women that come after us, to people like us following in our footsteps? When we don't ask for what we want and we don't make waves for reasons that we feel good about, what are we showing everybody else who comes after us, who might be watching us or looking up to us? I know it's a lot of pressure to put on ourselves, but we have to really recognize that there are people who are observing our actions and they're observing how we're showing up in situations. And I think that even, really further confirms the need for us to do this, even when we don't want to, even when it's uncomfortable, so that everyone else who comes after us will see it as just, this is just what you do. This is just how it works. When you have something that you want, you ask for it. And they can reach back to those examples and memories of you doing it as evidence and proof that it can be done and in fact should be done. as we approach a negotiation, I think it's also important for us just to do a little introspection and just kind of ask ourselves, how am I feeling about this? Why am I wanting to do this? And really connect with that part of you that's saying, yes, do this, ask for the thing. If your gut is really telling you that this is something that you need to do, I would urge you just to trust that and know that maybe this is your future self, your future dream, kind of nudging you to have courage and take that step in that direction. And as part of that, just asking yourself, if I choose not to do this and I choose to be comfortable and I choose not to sign up for this uncomfortable experience, will I regret it? And do I have to regret it? What's it going to hurt for me to do this thing? Am I really just avoiding a negative emotion? Is that really what's motivating me to say no? And just really asking yourself and getting clear on, why do I want to do this? How does this fit into the grand scheme of who I want to be? And consider, is this an opportunity for me just to practice that discomfort? Because I know where I want to go. And logically, I know that that's going to require me to do all sorts of things that make me uncomfortable. Maybe this is just one more opportunity for me to practice that discomfort and keep moving forward. And so just observing what comes up for you as you think about the negotiation and feeling that discomfort and watching the thoughts, the self-doubts that will come up as part of this process is a really beautiful learning experience, because those same thoughts, those same self-doubts are going to come up the next time we're doing something scary, and the next time and the next time. And we have to get really familiar with them if we're ever going to learn how to deconstruct them or experience them and just bring them along for the ride, which is also an option available to us. This can also allow us to have some exploration about just kind of historical experiences we've had with pushback or speaking up or uncomfortable conversations, and asking ourselves, when am I the most comfortable? When am I the most uncomfortable? For me, I'm most comfortable giving pushback in a work environment. It's very difficult for me and uncomfortable for me when it's someone that I care about, my partner, my family. That's when pushback really it becomes more difficult for me. And so just knowing that when I feel like the relationship could really be adversely affected, and there's a lot on the line from the relationship perspective, that's when I really struggle in negotiating. And so for me, I always have to look at the other person and say, how much value am I putting on this relationship? And is there a worry that I'm going to destroy the relationship entirely by asking for what I want? Because I know that for me, that's a trigger. That's what's triggering me with my family and my close friends. And I have to deconstruct that. And I have to get to a place where I'm believing all will not be lost by having this negotiation. I'm able to do that because I know that part of myself, because I've done this exploration. And also just asking, do I tolerate conflict well in general? Do I like to speak up? Do I speak up easily? As an introvert, for me, typically the answer to that is no. I don't really love conflict. And that's another thing that I need to know going into these discussions. And so I think back to negotiations I've had in the past that turned very contentious. I had to anticipate that my fight or flight would rise, right? I wouldn't be able to think clearly. My chest would get bright red and I'd get flustered. And so I knew in those situations, I would wear something high neck so the other person couldn't tell how much they were flustering me. And I would have to come in with an exit strategy in mind, knowing that if it got contentious and if I felt like I was attacked, it was not going to go well for me. My temper was going to flare. My voice was going to quaver. I might cry because that's what I do when I get really angry. And that's not how I wanted it to go. And so I had to come into it with an exit strategy that sounded something like, I can see that we're getting kind of heated here. If it's okay with you, I'm going to step away and take a moment to compose myself. That's an exit opportunity that I always had with me if I ever needed it. And just knowing that I had that out always brought me a little bit of comfort. I could see things getting contentious and ask myself, do I need to remove myself from the situation? Because I know that isn't something that sits well easily with me. How do you think about negotiations is another one. I think as women, we have a lot of thoughts about what it means to negotiate and what it means to ask for what we want, what it means to push back, and what we think other people will be thinking about that pushback and us expressing ourselves. There's a lot to deconstruct there because those thoughts can come up in the conversation. Oh, he thinks I'm just being a brat, or he thinks I'm being a little girl. I actually had a negotiation once where the man I was just asking for a raise from said something along the lines of being a brat. And I immediately just felt myself getting out of my element. And he really kind of hit a nerve for me because there's a part of me when I think about negotiations, I think, oh, you're just being a brat. You're just being a baby. And when he used that word, I just wanted to go there. And it really kind of took me away from who I wanted to be in that space. And so again, just kind of knowing those triggers and knowing, any self-judgments that we might be having about asking for what we want. Do we think that we're being bratty? Do we think that we're being entitled? And working through that so that we can act from a clearer space. All of that kind of culminates in what is your mantra about negotiations? And it might be something like, this is my opportunity to create the career that I want, to take ownership of my path, to gather information, right? Every negotiation is an opportunity to just get more data. And if the answer is absolutely not, I'm not going to pay you the same as your male counterparts, which I've had that happen to me. That was very good information for me to have, knowing that that was the position and that that's how they were going to handle that request. I took that information and chose to leave, right? I didn't have to get upset about it. I didn't have to pitch a fit about it. Of course, I was angry about it, but the negotiation was intended to find that information out. Once I had it, I could take that information and make informed decisions from it. And so approaching the negotiation from a space of, this is just an opportunity for me to learn and gather data was very helpful for me to kind of stop myself from, jumping over the table and wanting to freak out. Okay, so how do we prepare for negotiations? I'm a firm believer in visualizations. If it works for professional athletes, it can work for us. So really just getting into that space. Who do I want to be in that moment? What do I want to be thinking? And how do I want to be feeling in visualizing that? I will also tell you that I think it's really important when you visualize, don't just visualize the best case scenario. I want you to also visualize what you'll be thinking and telling yourself and feeling if and when those uncomfortable feelings come up. I remember sitting in some of those difficult conversations and feeling the heat rise in my chest and feeling the discomfort and feeling my heart start to race, anger, frustration, and really watching it almost like an out-of-body experience. And so I think it's important to visualize how you will experience those emotions when they come up, but also rerouting yourself in your mantra and continuing through. And I think it's good to assume that that is going to happen as part of the negotiation. I'm going to have some uncomfortable feelings. I'm going to visualize how I'm going to process them. I'm going to release them. I'm going to experience them in my body, and I'm going to keep moving. And so just anticipating that challenge and visualizing how you will talk to yourself and handle that is also going to be really important. Taking that personal inventory, we talked a little bit about that before, but just really looking back, what do I think about pushing back? What past experiences have I had, and did they go well? What experience do I have with not asking for what I want, and how do I feel about that? And really looking at those past experiences to further bolster your confidence here. I have not asked for the things I wanted in the past, and I judged myself and I was frustrated, and there's all those unknowns. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to own my career. I'm going to take control. I'm going to ask for what I want, and using those past experiences to help you get clear on why this is so important, on why you want it, and what do you want. When you think about what it is you're asking for, it's not just important to know what you're wanting, but it's important to kind of look at things from the other party's perspective. How would this or could this also benefit them? Is there a way that I can show them that this is not just about me? Maybe it's about the company. Maybe it's about my investment in them as well. How could they also win from this? For example, you might be asking for a promotion. Maybe as part of that, you can offer look, you don't need to hire a new person and go through all the time and effort of training them. I'm right here, happy to do it. And I can step in now and save that time and save the cost of getting a headhunter, right? That's a win-win. We can make it very easy for them. And so just thinking about, is there some way that we can help them see the benefit that they will also get out of whatever it is that we're asking? Lastly, getting clear on your power and your value. When you come to a negotiation, we want to come to it from a space of confidence and belief in what we have to offer. It's very easy to go to that place that they're going to fire me. This is never going to work. They're going to just, give up on me completely. I'm going to be without a job if I ask, right? Our brain wants to tell us that. But bringing it back to, here's all the reasons why they're not going to fire me right now, right? I'm in the middle of all these big projects. I'm an essential member of these teams. I'm the only person here who does X, Y, or Z. I'm not here to pick a fight. I'm not drawing a line in the sand. I'm just gathering information, telling them what I want, and I'm hearing what they think about it, right? Bring the temperature down and just get very clear with those worries. Why is it completely ridiculous to think that when you ask for a raise? How can I answer that? And that's really rooted in connecting with your own power and your own value. So that's kind of all the mental work and preparation, but there's also going to be some homework that you have to do before you're adequately prepared, oftentimes, to have the conversation. Gathering data is going to be really important. Often when we're gearing up for a difficult conversation, we kind of just want to go. We want to do it. We kind of want to rip the Band-Aid off and get it over with. And that's partly because we don't like this feeling of anticipation and worrying about how it's going. And we want to hurry up and get there so I don't have to feel like this anymore. Okay. So knowing that that's happening can let us just set that over here. Yes, I want to get this over with. Yes, I don't like feeling like this, anticipating and worrying and staying up night thinking about this. Yes, I don't like that. But that's not a good reason for me to hurry up and rush and just do this unprepared. That's just me running away from an emotion. And we've talked about how you can just process that, release it, learn to experience it, and move forward, because we have work to do. We want to make sure we're adequately prepared for whatever may come at us in this discussion. So gathering the data, usually we're asking for something like a promotion or more money. You might be helped in that discussion if you had information on what are comparable people making in other organizations, at other firms within the organization. If I'm asking for a promotion, you might be thinking, well, gosh, they're going to say it's too quick. I haven't been here long enough. Maybe there's other people in your organization who similarly got promoted very quickly. That would be helpful data to have and to know. Maybe this organization or whatever unit you're in or whatever it may be has a really high turnover rate. Knowing that can help add to your power and your leverage, right? Maybe your firm, big surprise, doesn't have a lot of women or minorities. Knowing that, having that data is also going to be very important if you happen to be in one of those groups and you're making an important request. So being really strategic in the information that you gather so that you can even further see what power you have and really kind of start testing the waters of your ask. As you think about what data to gather, an important element to consider is what might some of their opposition be? We never promote anyone that quickly. No one else would make that much. We've never made anyone a partner at that age or that quickly or whatever it may be. Well, we never really give anyone credit for their military legal experience. All of those types of excuses might be something that you could anticipate if you're asking for a promotion or a raise or what have you. And so with those opposing comments in mind, we can go and look and see, okay, was there data that might be helpful for me to answer those opposing positions? Lastly, using your network and people that you know, either in the organization or outside the organization, to get their insights and perspectives. That might look something like, if you're looking for a promotion, you might be concerned that they're going to say, well, you're not adequately prepared, or we don't think the team would be supportive of that. Maybe it'd be helpful to talk to other members of the team. Hey, we have this position open. Do you think I would be a good fit? What do you think if I threw my name in the ring for that opportunity? And just getting their thoughts. And so that you can have that information to offer it if that opposition presents itself during the discussion. Asking others who might work with this person or have a long experience with this person, how does this person operate when it comes to negotiations? Are they going to need to ruminate on it for a couple days? Is he going to get really mad at me? Like, how does he handle those types of scenarios, or she? And that's going to help you get even more prepared, right? We're going to know a little bit more what to anticipate. Is there some other person that you could bring in for support? Is there another board member or a practice group chair or another partner of yours who might be in agreement with whatever it is you're proposing? That would be helpful to know, but it also might be helpful to bring them into this whole strategizing session. Maybe there's another way to go about it that doesn't involve you just having a one-on-one conversation, but you never know until you ask. And so these are all things that we explore by letting in additional support and really socializing what it is that you plan to do. So as we plan the negotiation, right, we've gathered our data, we've done our internal work, but now we're really going to kind of sit down and start planning and ideating on kind of how do we want it to go and what do we want to include in the discussion. One of our focal points has to be making it really easy to get to yes. And that might be preparing a work plan, a job description, whatever it may be, but you want to make it as easy as possible. Here's the decision I want. I'm handing it to you on a silver platter with all the bells and whistles and everything you need to make this simple, right? If you're wanting a promotion and you are concerned that they might not be on board with it, or they might think you're not ready, okay, no problem at all. Here's my plan for the next 3 months. And these are the projects that I intend to take on that are going to demonstrate for you that I can do this. And I'm going to meet with you regularly over these next couple months and talk about X, Y, and Z. At the end of this time period, we're going to reconvene and we're going to talk about it. I'm going to meet with these other individuals and discuss what they think I need to do to demonstrate my ability to do this job. I'm going to put together a job description. Maybe you bring it with you to the negotiation if that's appropriate. But whatever you can possibly think of to make this as easy as possible for them to say yes without any work from them, it's going to make it even simpler, right? They don't want to give you something that's going to require a whole bunch of work from them. And so we have to come into it with that in mind. We want to make it very clear what we're looking for and what our expectations would be. I want a promotion. Okay, when do you want the promotion? What does that entail? How does it affect your compensation? How does it affect your current workload? We need to think through all of those things, because if those aren't thought out and you haven't made decisions on those, now you're making it difficult for them. And now we're giving them the power to make those decisions. No. We bring all those decisions with us as part of our offering. So set up that story, paint the picture, what this is going to look like. I'm going to make partner next month, next year. Here's what I'm going to do between now and then to prove that to you. Here's what my business plan for first year of partnership is going to look like. These are my client prospects. These are the clients. This is the amount of origination I think I can bring to the firm, whatever it may be. But set that up and help them really see where this is going to go. So we're thinking through what we want the ask to sound like, but obviously we also have to decide who should be there. What are we going to say? When are we going to say it? Where and why? So really thinking through all the logistics that go into it. And giving yourself the opportunity to push on all those conclusions. Maybe it's not just one person. Maybe you present this to a board or a committee or a subcommittee first. Evaluating when you want to do it. Is there a quarterly meeting coming up that it's important for you to have this discussion beforehand? Is there a compensation committee meeting coming up? And if you're asking for more comp, we probably need to know how soon we need to get this request in so that it can be effective. That all goes into kind of the legwork, but also planning just the logistics of the discussion. And finally, preparing a plan B, C, and D, and making sure that you have concessions ready to go. So for instance, if you're wanting a promotion, we can start off with, I'd like to be promoted. I'd like it to be effective next month. Okay, you get some pushback, you get some concern from them. You might not be ready. We don't know about that. People are going to be upset about it. Okay, let me offer this to you. Let's give it a test run for 3 months. Don't change my title, but I'm going to do all this extra work. I'm going to show up as if I already got the promotion. And at the end of 3 months, we're going to revisit it and we're going to talk about it. Okay, maybe that doesn't work for you. Next plan, 6 months. All right, well, let's do a year, whatever it may be, but everyone is going to have its own little nuances, and be prepared to offer those. So that when you come in, if you don't get your first offer out of the gate, the conversation's not over. It's just, okay, well, that one didn't work. Let's try and come at it this way, and let's try and come at it this way. It's just different obstacles that we have to kind of strategize around, and we're going to bring all of those strategies with us. No does not have to be the end of the conversation. So the actual negotiation, first, we're going to tee it up. I'm here today to talk to you about my future in this organization. And then we ask for what we want. I usually say that somewhere in here, we sprinkle in some gratitude, right? Thank you so much for the opportunity to meet with me. I'm here to talk to you about X, Y, or Z. We ask for what we want, and we bolster it with facts. I usually say that sometimes it's easier to start with the facts, right? We share the gratitude and we give the facts, because sometimes when you start right out of the gate with the ask, they kind of get lost. Like they're going down their path of objections and concerns. They're on guard already. So if you think that that's a possibility, then start with your facts and present your case. Would it surprise you to know I've been with this organization for, 2 years? Did you know that I have significant management experience from my prior job? And it might be also helpful for you to know that while I really am enjoying what I'm doing and I'm getting really good feedback, I want to do more. I want to take on more responsibility. I can be busier. I have more space. I have more to give to this organization. And because of that, I really think I'm a good fit for this opportunity, for this promotion, for a partnership, whatever it may be. Now, here, we're going to pivot from the ask and from the facts to anticipating some of those objections. Now, you might be thinking, I haven't been here long enough for this. People are going to be upset by this. I have talked to a couple members of the team, and they would be perfectly comfortable helping me gather the tools I need to make a smooth transition, or taking on these aspects of my work to ensure everything goes smoothly, whatever it may be. But this is the place where you can kind of throw out some of those thoughts that they might be having. They're not qualified. This is never going to work. People are going to be upset, and head some of those off. And we don't want to spend a lot of time there, because we never know what they're going to be thinking. And the objections that you've anticipated, we could be totally off base. But I think it's fair and good to recognize an objection or two, just to let them know, like, I'm not coming to this with rose-colored glasses. I understand there might be some concerns, and I've thought about them, right? So then here we are. Now we're kind of in the volleying part of the negotiation. We allow them an opportunity to respond. And in this part of the discussion, as they're laying out their case, it becomes really important to ask some deepening questions. Help me understand how you arrived at that conclusion. Can you walk me how these decisions are typically made? What do you think is the biggest challenge to me to moving forward with my request? What can I do to help you get more comfortable with this? Are you open to trying this for a brief period of time, after which we revisit? Lots of really good opportunity for questions to explore and get clear on what is the showstopper for them. What's going through their head that's causing them some concern? And is there some way that we can take this opportunity right now and strategize around it together? But first, we have to understand, what are their issues? Okay, so we have this volley, we have this back and forth. We might come to an agreement, we might not, and we'll kind of get there. But ultimately, where we also always want to end is appreciation and follow-up. So if you think about it kind of big picture, I call it a gratitude sandwich. Thank you so much for meeting with me. I'm here to talk to you today about my future here. And then we end with, thank you so much for taking time to meet with me. I really appreciate all the opportunities you've given me, something like that. We want to ensure the conversation starts on a high note and ends on a high note, to just reaffirm we're all on the same team here. This is not a me versus you thing. This is a collaborative effort to figure out how we can get closer to what I'm asking of you, and how I can help the organization at the same time. Okay, so let's break this down a little bit more. So the opening, we're going to start with a gratitude, but we're going to be very clear. I'm here to talk about my compensation. We might decide to share some evidence before we make the ask, whatever it may be, but we want to be very clear with our ask. Not, well, I'd really like to advance soon, or I would really like the opportunity to show you what I'm capable of. No, I want to be promoted to this position effective next month, effective 1/1. Be very clear with what you're asking for. And for all of us who I assume took negotiations in law school, you start with your most aggressive offer and you hope that maybe through the volleying, we might end somewhere in the middle. You might get your most aggressive offer. We don't know. But if you start there, odds are pretty good that you're going to land somewhere on the spectrum that's close to where you want to be, or at least on the spectrum of where you want to be. When you think about the evidence that you want to present them to support your offer, it's important just to recognize what happens in people's brains when we kind of hit them with something new, especially when we're asking something of them that might put up their defenses and they might get into a little bit of fight or flight brain. They're not going to be able to process a lot of information right out of the gate. And so I would definitely recommend pacing your evidence, deciding which evidence is most important to offer right out of the gate and which evidence might be better used in other aspects of your ask. Maybe it's in some of your backups. Maybe it's part of your anticipating some of their objections or overcoming some of their objections. So just being very decisive in where you choose to share your facts and which ones you think make the most sense to share up front. Allowing for concessions, again, is really important. Nobody wants to be seen as, having no backbone, bending over backwards for anyone who asks anything of them. And so we want to kind of build in an opportunity for them to kind of have their own wins. And so if we're asking for a promotion, we can start off saying, well, I want it to be effective tomorrow. And maybe you say, okay, secretly, I would be okay if it was effective next month or 2 months from now. Or look, quite frankly, I'd just be happy if it was effective this year. But allowing that space from your first ask, building kind of in that concession so that they can win as well, is going to make it easier for them to also kind of get on board with this. Like they get their piece of it, you get your piece of it. They see themselves as kind of having a give and take in this as well. And as you develop those concessions and you decide where this discussion ends, make sure that you're stating it and approaching it and asking questions from a space of we. We really want to avoid the negotiation becoming a me versus them, because now the energy has totally changed and the willingness to give has kind of vanished. Part of the way that we avoid that is using we statements. It reminds the other person that, look, we're on the same team. I'm not quitting and giving you ultimatums. I'm asking you to help me give my greatest contribution, be my best, help the organization. How can we do this? Right. And it really reminds both of you that we are trying to find a collaborative solution. We're not at war. And just being really mindful, instead of saying I want, it's best for both of us, the organization, we can really benefit from this. And here's why. This could really benefit our team. And here's why I'm thinking that makes sense. So thinking about it from the we and our and team perspective can also kind of take the temperature down and show you as a team player. Owning your power. So again, part of the reason we share facts is to ensure that when we have a conversation, we want to make sure everybody's on the same playing field. I will be the first to admit that when you're a partner and you have a bunch of people working for you, you forget how long they've been practicing. Half the time you can't remember their name. You don't really remember what their background or specialties are. Like, it's hard sometimes to keep track of all that stuff. So with that in mind, I definitely recommend being prepared to share some of that information about yourself that you think they just should know. I promise you, they probably don't just know it. And even if they do, it might not be top of mind. They might be coming off of a conference call and their brain's spinning, or they're frustrated about a million different things. Like, don't make them work to recall that information, because it's also distracting. They might be talking to you and they're like, gosh, what year is she? Why is she asking me for this? Does she really have the skills? Gosh, where did she go to law school? You know, who knows what they're going to be thinking? We don't want them to go there. We want to tell them, you know, I've been at this firm for 5 years. Before that, you know, I did X, Y, and Z. I also worked at this other firm. I have a lot of experience here, whatever it may be, but remind them about your skill set and your value. You know, over the last, 5 years here, I've brought in 5 clients of my own and they've generated $5 million in revenue. Would it surprise you to know that prior to coming here, I was in-house counsel at this organization? I have all these really great contacts. So whatever pertinent facts about your skill set and your resume are going to help this person make the decision, get them out there. Examples of things that you've done for them or for the firm, get them out there. Don't assume that they're going to be top of mind for them. They might remember, absolutely. But in that moment, who knows what's going on? Like, let's make this very simple for them. As I stated before, and kind of laying out the conversation, anticipating obstacles and calling them out and offering your way to strategize around them is going to demonstrate to them that you really thought about this. And it might take some legwork for you to kind of decide, how would I strategize around that? What can I offer? One of the things they might say is, well, other people are going to be upset about it. Like, they're not going to understand. How can we strategize around that? Maybe we have an announcement that we make together. Maybe I meet individually with everybody of the team. Maybe we meet individually with everybody on the team and help them understand why this situation is unique, why we're doing it this way. When you recognize what they're worried about and offer them a solution, it's like, okay, moving on, next obstacle. Okay, that's not a big deal. Like, they've already got a plan for that. Okay. It makes it very difficult for them to say no, because that obstacle they just offered to you, now you have a solution and you can talk about the solution, and now they have nothing to worry about. It makes it so much easier for them to get to yes. So it's part of being a problem solver. They are going to offer concerns, potentially, obstacles, potentially, or objections. It's important to really validate them and offer to them that you can be a team player, you can empathize with what they're thinking. And so instead of saying, I don't really see that as being an obstacle, you can say, I can understand, or I can appreciate why you might think that. Or if you truly don't, just ask, help me understand a little bit more about that. That's something I hadn't anticipated, and just own it. And that might be something that you say, I'll take back, and I'm going to develop a strategy, and we're going to work around that. And I don't want that to be a reason that we don't get to yes today. But not putting down any concerns that they have, but recognizing them, appreciating them, and just validating them, letting them know that we're in this together, and I get it. It's about being respectful of the person, but being tough on the problem. Again, it's kind of that we proposition, like we're trying to solve this together. It might be difficult sometimes to go down these rabbit holes about your experience, about a particular objection that they have. Whenever you feel the conversation kind of spinning out of control, just try and refocus and regroup. And it might sound something like, we could spend a lot of time really going down the rabbit hole on that. And I think that's a really important topic for us to explore as we move forward with this. But for right now, I'd really like to kind of focus on big picture. Is this something that we think we can do? Is this something that you think the firm can accommodate for me? If that's the case, then I would really like to further think about that obstacle or that issue that you raised, and see if I can help strategize around that. See if I can help offer some solutions. But I don't think we need to fix everything today or solve for it today. Today, I just kind of want to get a sense of if this is something that we can be open to, right? And so you bring it back to here. You bring it back to the focus, and that is, I'm asking a question. I want to see if this is an avenue that we can explore, and be open to not coming to a clear yes or no today, and taking home some homework for you to regroup on and revisit with this person later on. So being prepared to exit with homework is also part of that. And it will allow you to stay focused, because now you don't feel like you have to solve for everything in this moment. A couple tactics that might help redirect or overcome some of those objections. So just appealing to their sense of fairness. I love these questions. What would you do if you were me? Is this the best that you can do? Like, truly, is this the best the firm can offer to me? I just want to know, like, for information purposes. Okay, great. Like, the firm can't offer me that. That's good information for me to have. I truly just want to know, right? It really kind of, it puts it all out there. Let's just be honest and open with each other about this. Like, what would you do if you were me and you weren't feeling like you were being paid fairly, or you were overlooked for a promotion that you were entitled to? Like, what do you think I should do? And really kind of bring their person into it, and maybe shut off their business brain, or shut off kind of the adversarial part of the conversation. As many people will tell you, mirroring their style, mirroring their body language, I think is helpful in kind of making sure the conversation stays even. If they're crossing their arms, they're crossing their legs, you might mirror that. If they're asking a lot of questions, you might turn the questions back on them. If they're talking very contemplatively and very slowly, you might do the same thing. If they're really engaging in some long pauses to think and to contemplate, do the same. Pacing the conversation that way, again, it kind of shows this partnership. One person's not leading, it's kind of this delicate dance and back and forth. I also think, even as women, I know we struggle sometimes with sharing our passion and being open about how much we care about something. I'm a firm believer that when we are negotiating, it's about sharing our truth. And that means that if you're passionate about something, or something's really important to you, by all means, say it, and say it honestly, and say it openly with that feeling behind it. This is really important to me. I love being here, but I don't want to feel taken advantage of. I want to be pushed harder. I want more opportunity. I want to do more. It's important to me. I don't want to be bored in my job. Say it with the emotion that you actually carry with it. It's hard for people to say no to it, but they're going to see, like, this is just someone asking for what they want from a place of integrity and authenticity. They're not here pitching a fit to be difficult. It can also, make you more of a person in their eyes rather than a problem to be solved. As I mentioned, in mirroring kind of style, using silence is a way to kind of mirror their style too. If they're using a lot of silence, use it as well. But I do think silence just in general is a powerful tool. Use it for yourself to take time before you respond. Say, I'm sorry, I just need another minute to continue to gather my thoughts. If you need even more silence, right? Or make your request and indulge in the silence and allow them the opportunity to gather their own thoughts. Silence can be a very powerful negotiation tool. When we rise to fill it, it's often because we're uncomfortable. And the thoughts that we're having, oh, they're judging me, they're frustrated, he's going to freak out, oh my God, what am I doing? Those are the thoughts that cause us to jump up and fill that silence. No, that's not who we want to be. We want to be confident. We want to be trusting and believing. I'm here to gather information. It's just a conversation. This is not going to make or break my career. So use that silence. Lastly, delay where needed, right? It's better to be difficult than inauthentic. So the conversation might evolve in a way where you've kind of landed somewhere that maybe you don't want to be, or maybe they've offered something that you haven't thought about, or maybe you're not really jazzed about it and you might want more time to think about it. They may now be in a position where they want you to give them an answer. And we have to be difficult rather than saying yes when we mean no. Because again, this is about owning our power. This is about creating the career that we want. We don't want this conversation to go down a path where they've created something for our career that we don't want. That's exactly what we're trying not to do. So when we get to a space in the discussion where we haven't thought about it, we're not fully prepared, but we can feel in our gut that we don't really want to give a decision, own it. I really need to take some time to think about this. I hadn't anticipated that. I didn't think this was where the conversation was going to go. Just own it and just be really honest about what's happening with you. I want to take some time. I don't want to be inauthentic. I don't want to say yes when I mean no. I want to be honest with you. I want to have that relationship with you. Just sticking to your truth can make the whole discussion so much simpler. We don't have to worry about what they're thinking. We don't have to worry about what they're going to do. I'm just going to tell you what's going on with me. I need some time to think. I didn't anticipate this. I'm really uncomfortable saying yes right now. Very simple. So always allow yourself the opportunity to take that space, take the delay, take some time, and move on. Sometimes negotiations will devolve. And I have myself have been in more than one that really went down paths that I didn't anticipate and were handled in a manner that I was really disappointed in, for the other person, to be quite frank about it. But I think if I could do it all over again, I would have anticipated maybe some more bad behavior. So it would have been helpful for me as a young attorney to have in my back pocket what I will do in the event that someone really takes this to an inappropriate place. And now we're engaging in belittling and bullying. And so if it goes down that path, having some strategies with you are going to help in the moment. If someone is attacking you, the negotiation has just totally gone off the rails and they're just attacking you, like, you're not qualified to do this, and here's all the reasons why you're terrible. Start seeing what's going on here, right? The bullying and the belittling and kind of the power dynamic that they're trying to engage you in. One of the ways that we can really get them to see or speak their own truth, get them to see what's really happening here and speak truth, is to ask for examples. Okay, you're telling me that I'm doing a really bad job. Like, where's this feedback coming from? Can you give me an example? Is there someone that I can talk to get some clarity around this? And really asking them to kind of put their money where their mouth is, because when someone's raising to that energy to belittle you and bully you, they're trying to take away all your power and your agency. By asking questions and trying to explore and look for proof to support what they're saying to you, it's you taking your power back. And it can kind of take some of the power away from them because they're not ruffling your feathers. It's almost like you're willing to buy into what they're saying, but you want to understand it more. You want more information. You want some examples. You want some facts. And so that can often take them off guard a little bit and take it down a notch, and kind of, because it puts them on the spot. So asking for that data and not allowing them to just make these general statements without giving you information that would be helpful for you to explore those statements further. Because again, we're supposed to be in this together. If I'm doing a terrible job, I want to understand that more so that I can be better for you, but I'm going to need some more information to do that. Sometimes there is no constructive feedback. There is nothing constructive that could come out of this type of back and forth of belittling and bullying, in which case it's an opportunity for a boundary. And when I say a boundary, what I mean is you state a request. If you are going to, it's not necessarily a request, but it's the boundary is, if you continue to do X, Y, or Z, if you continue to yell at me, if you continue to swear at me, that's kind of the boundary request, then I will. And so you make the request, and then you have what you will do in response. I will leave. I will end this discussion. I will quit, whatever it may be. But it's about what you will do. We're not asking them necessarily to stop being who they are and whatever it is that they're doing. We're just telling them, if that's who you want to be, this is who I'm going to be. I'm going to get up and leave. I'm going to get up and go home. I'm going to take a couple days. I'm going to come back and we'll revisit this with you next week. So we have an opportunity to lay that boundary and really execute upon it. When they continue with the behavior that's related to the boundary and they violate the boundary you've set, we have to execute. You have to get up and leave. Without that, the boundary has no power. It's just a threat. Boundaries can be scary because typically in negotiations, we feel like we're the inferior power. They have all the power. They have all the opportunity to give us what we want, and we can't have any say or do anything about it. We have to let go of that, especially when we're going to execute on a boundary. I remember once where I had a partner threaten to fire me because I had asked to be paid comparable to some of the men I was working with. And he threatened to fire me. And he threatened to fire me several times during the conversation. And I remember kind of like shocked, well, I've never had anyone fire me on the spot before. Like, I can't believe this is happening. And I had this moment where I thought, I'm a partner. You can't just fire me like that. It doesn't work like that, right? But the fight or flight in me was like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, how embarrassing would that be? And it just went down the rabbit hole. So we have to be very clear about not overestimating the power of the other person, the power of them to ruin your career, the power of them to ruin your reputation, the power of them to fire you on the spot. A lot of times that's just a bunch of BS. So we want to get very factual on, okay, how much authority do they really have? How much truth is there in any of that? But we also have to examine your own power. How much do they need me? How much trouble would they be in if I just walked out, if you fired me, or if I had enough and never came back? Really look at your value within the organization so that we don't let those fears about their power versus your power keep you from asking, for one, but also keep you from setting a boundary when you feel like your boundaries are being violated. If your boundaries are being violated, we have to own our power in order to execute on it and follow through on it. And so taking some time to take stock before the conversation to really slip into that power and recognize your value can be helpful, not only to further your confidence to make the ask, but if something goes off the line and the conversation just goes down a black hole that you do not want to be in, we're going to have to slip back into that power in order to cut it off and stop it from devolving into something even worse. So hopefully we don't go down that path. We don't end up setting a boundary and walking out. Hopefully where we end up is we can just wrap up the conversation. So maybe you come to an agreement. Maybe you come to a decision that you're going to take more time and think about it. Maybe you've made a concession, whatever it may be. At the end of the discussion, you want to get very clear about your understanding of the agreement and next steps. I generally recommend following up the conversation with an email, thanking them for the conversation and reiterating the understanding of what was agreed to. So now that everybody has it in writing, there's no opportunity for anyone to be confused. If you decided to pause the conversation and maybe revisit, maybe they want to buy time and discuss it with the board or a committee or whatever it may be, it's always important to just let them know how important it is for you to resolve this sooner rather than later. And that might look like asking them to check back in with you in a week. And in the interest of making this as easy as possible for them, maybe we put time on their calendar. Hey, I'm going to check in with you next week. I'll put time on your calendar for us to have a brief call, just so we can see what's happening and if I can answer any questions for you. We want to keep the conversation moving. We don't want them to use delay and avoidance to not give us any clarity or any resolution in hopes that we just go away. As always, we want to minimize their work effort. So whatever the follow-up may be, whatever the next steps may be, if there's something else that needs to be explored that they think needs to be explored, offer to do it. I'm happy to follow up with this group or that group or HR and gather that data or that information. I'm happy to crunch some more numbers and provide that to you next week. Make sure that in any way that you can simplify this for them and take work off of their plate, the better. And so always keep that in mind. For the follow-ups, make sure you set a time, confirm the terms, and regroup on your own. How did the negotiation go? How did you show up? Where did you slip up? What made you uncomfortable? What did they do that maybe triggered something for you? Was there something that happened that you hadn't anticipated, and what can you learn from that? All of those are going to be tremendously helpful as you continue this conversation, maybe, or for the next negotiation and difficult conversation. As you further these discussions with people in your life and in your professional career, there might be opportunities for you to ask them, how do you think that conversation went? Where are you with that? Do you have any feedback with me on how I presented my case? Or was there something I overlooked? Look for opportunities to ask for that feedback. Negotiating and difficult conversations are things that we do so infrequently that we very rarely get the chance to have them and ask for the feedback. We usually just avoid it and try and pretend like it didn't even happen. But what I'm offering you here is, for something that we do so irregularly, but that can have such significant impacts on your career. We want to get good at it. We want to get better at it. There's no better way to do that than to ask for feedback with the people that you've had these conversations with. Hey, what did you think? What do you think about how I set that up and presented it? Because I want to go have a similar conversation over here, and I would just like your thoughts, right? If the conversation did devolve and you maybe had to execute a boundary, maybe you didn't execute a boundary, but you're feeling like there's unresolved tension, use the follow-up as an opportunity to maybe lay the boundary that maybe you didn't lay in the conversation. Hey, I just want you to know that I was very uncomfortable with the way that you spoke with me during the conversation. And in the future, if that's how you're going to speak to me, I don't want to work with you. I will ask to be moved to a different group. I will look for another job. That's not the type of environment I want to be in, you know. Or when I got up and left your office because of the way you were speaking with me, I just want you to know it makes me very uncomfortable. I don't want to be at a place, you know, where that happens. Nothing about you. I like you as a person. It just makes me uncomfortable, and it's not something I'm willing to put up with. But don't lose out on the opportunity to address it, maybe after the dust has settled a little bit as part of those follow-ups. When they say no, if they say no, make sure that you think of it as a not yet, or as one avenue that you have tried to try and get there, and be open to the possibility that there's a bunch of other avenues that you can try that all lead to the same place. Okay, I've tried one, didn't work. I'm going to strategize and find another one and stay in the game. So many times I see women and myself when I was young in my career, you take that no and you just check out, right? I got totally shot down. I don't like the way that conversation went. I'm here. I'll do my job, but it's just a job. You know, you're there, but you're not there. Because we don't want to start that reputation as someone who gets sour when they don't get what they want. Instead, we want to be seen as somebody who is a constructive thinker, who's willing to take that no and strategize around it and come at it again and come at it again and try a different way. But they're not going to let it steal their energy and their power and their commitment to the job. So instead of taking that no and letting it deflate you, focus on giving. Focus on showing up as your best self. When you live from that space, you always attract things to you. And you will always have a reputation as someone who shows up, even in the face of adversity, even after being shot down. She's someone that we can count on. That's the person that you want to be. So don't allow any unproductive negotiation or any no to sour you and who you want to be. It doesn't have to mean anything about you, and choose to show up as your best self instead and use that information to decide how you want to move forward. Maybe you want to leave, but in the meantime, commit to being your best self, regardless of how that happened or what happened in that discussion, and remain positive to the best that you can. Never forget that the negotiation is just a way to gather information. You know what you want, you asked for it. How they respond, what they do with it, it's just information. You get to choose what to do with that information, because you can always leave. You can always fire your boss. That's power. And so when you look at the negotiation as an opportunity to gather data, to own your career and own your life, you can really show up differently afterwards and take that information and take that conversation, no matter how bad it might have been. Okay, that was good to know. I had no idea it was going to go that poorly. Now I have my own choices to make about who I want to be and where I want to be with my life and my career. Okay, lots of good worksheets that go with this topic. They're going to help you take it a little bit farther, help you prepare for the conversation and structure the conversation. So I'm hopeful that all of these together, this has been a really long module, but this is such an important topic. And it's so important because these types of conversations and pushing through this type of discomfort, this is something we have to do again and again and again to get us where we want to be, to own our career and create the life and the career that we're truly wanting. We're not going to wait for other people to create it for us. we're going to start taking action, uncomfortable action to get there. And this is all part of it, those uncomfortable conversations and negotiations. So I hope the information was helpful to you. I will see you in the next module. Thanks so much for being here.